What is going on, you guys, and welcome back to Sergeant Tank Pets here on the YouTube channel. If you guys want to learn more about not only topics such as breeding, go ahead and smash the subscribe button. Make sure that you guys turn on those post notifications and select all in the drop-down menu so you get all future updates here on the channel. So the first thing I'm going to show you guys here, this is my design based on a cave. This is a slate cave. You can pick up this slate for about 17 bucks, and it comes in an entire bulk supply, so you can make quite a few of these depending on the size that you're making. I've done an in-depth video, so this is the point for myself. When I edit, I can go ahead and add that link for you guys to the video, more in depth, talking about the basis behind this specific cave and why I use it. Specifically for plecos, the ancestral species. So the nice thing about this is from the standpoint that it is removable. So if you are wanting to transfer the eggs from this, you can simply do so by the removable top, as you see here, rather than some of the caves are designed to where it's bonded and you can't necessarily remove it. So why it's on a diagonal here and at this specific size, anywhere from subadult to full adult size once they've reached that stage of maturity, based on plecos and the way that they breed. This specific cave is more so designed for a reverse trio. So that would be 2 males to a female. And the unique pairing and bond that they do specifically with plecos is from the standpoint that the female, the males will actually alternate roles. So I've seen it before where one female will lay eggs on this side. She'll go ahead and deposit more eggs on this side. Hence the name and hence the role. As far as a bonded pair, the 2 males will then alternate roles since they're the ones that protect the eggs. At this point, you can go ahead and remove the female from that system and go ahead and transfer her over to another system, getting her ready, built back up her immunity for another week or two in order for her to start depositing more eggs in the future. So why I specifically like pulling the eggs is just from the standpoint of I think a lot of people look at when they're pulling eggs, not only with plecos, but with other species as well. The main reason, besides the situation of food, maybe the hindrance as far as the fry, once they eat through the egg sac and get to that stage as far as that development, and once they begin eating foods that are offered within that ecosystem, besides lacking the potential of nutrition, be able to direct feed, even more important factor that I've studied just myself through the years of breeding many different things, specifically plecos, is it gives the parents an opportunity to reset. So what I mean by that is if you leave a male pleco in the system, even if you left the female in there, which I do recommend you pull the female out once the eggs have been fully deposited, and then you'll notice that the male is, of course, fanning the eggs, so on and so forth, is the male will literally stay in that cave up to 2 weeks, depending on the temperature of that system, until oftentimes for a period of time, I've seen it up to 2 weeks post hatching of those eggs. So the reason I pull even more so is it gives the father, it gives the mother of those fry an opportunity to start eating. They will not eat in that time. If you have good parents that protect their young, they're not going to eat. If a pleco comes out of that cave at any point in time when he's guarding those babies, he's not a good parent. You want to go ahead and move on. That will give them a few times. It sometimes takes them 3 or 4, maybe even 5 spawns until they catch on. And oftentimes by offering a dither fish within the system will get them in order to defend that territory. So that's why a lot of us use dithers in certain ecosystems in order to promote the parents to do their job. And if in the wild, that's the way that they do it. So we try to kind of recreate and mimic some of those scenarios. The other thing that I use is, besides the slate cave, like I said, there's many different variations. That's just my own specific design. Is for other cave spawners, is you can use something such as terracotta pot, something such as this you can pick up at your dollar store. A lot of times they come in a pack of 3 at this size. You can cut these out, so you can set them down to where you leave the hole just big enough. So a lot of like pistogrammas, crabensis, many different species for which are more cave spawners. A lot of times if you kind of bury it down into the substrate, what they'll do is they'll kind of make little divots and burrow themselves. So if you don't make a huge hole, it gives them an opportunity to kind of create their own little home for them to go ahead and deposit the eggs. So that's another option for you there. I'll show you an example here. This one's much larger. So you can kind of set this like almost at an angle, like down like this. And then basically the substrate, it would, like if this was the tank, kind of gives them an opportunity like that. And then they'll kind of come up in the top here. And that's where they'll generally deposit the eggs. Another option here, these are your water stakes. You can get these off from Amazon. A lot of people use these for various plecos. But again, you can get creative with these as well. Another one that I enjoy using that we make and we offer here. My wife came up with the name. I've talked about this before, but it's called Baba Breeder, hence the bobber. The reason I like this versus using a cork is you can quick release and you can drop these down. So if you want to use an acrylic spawning mop, you can drop them down all the way to the bottom, depending on what the basis is behind what you're trying to do. And then you can also just attach this like so, and then it will stay afloat. And then it'll just kind of stabilize itself depending on where you want it in the aquarium. So rainbow fish, some killifish, tetras, depending on what tetra it is. The main thing is the adhesiveness of the embryo or the egg itself. Sometimes celestial pearl danios, I've seen them do it on here, tetras and so forth, but most of those, the eggs will actually drop to the bottom. And another method that I don't have here is people use marbles. So what that does is if you layer the bottom of the tank with marbles, the eggs will essentially fall down in there, and then the parents can't get at those. So if they're trying to attack or anything else in the tank, and then what you can do is you can take a siphon, go through the bottom, and then you can siphon out all of the eggs, put them in a separate container. Another one here is for some shell-dwelling species. So there's lots of different shells that you can obtain, many different sizes depending on what species you're trying to breed. You can use something such as PVC. So many different sizes of PVC. If you cap the end of this, even plecos will find this useful. Here's a large 90. So lots of different options there as far as different opportunities for them to, give them different hides. And of course, you can use rock piles, which I'm not going to be able to show you guys those because those are all in our tanks, obviously. You can use different layers of slate. So many different options there. Another thing is too for labyrinth species. So gouramis, paradise fish, bettas, that type of thing. I've talked about this before, is use just a 1/2-inch piece. I find the white does best. And this is just a styro installation, same installation I use in shipping livestock. And that will stay afloat right on top of the tank. Just kind of tuck it back into the corner, more towards the back of the tank. And what they'll do is they'll actually use this in order to create their bubble nests. All right, so live plants. I knew there was something else I was missing here. So live plants here for you guys. You can go ahead and use what I prefer is Najas grass, also commonly known as guppy grass. And why I like Najas grass is from the standpoint, instead of using mosses, is it's very grass-like, hence the name. It's got all these little stems that run off, and a lot of the more adhesive embryos will bond to this quite well. Like the Aphysemian, Australia killifish eggs, and you can keep this afloat. You can create a environment to keep it on top, even mid-level or at the bottom, and you can just pretty much create heavily dense it as well. So if you want to raise like Gardner eye killifish, Aphysemians, blue galaris, many different rainbow fish, and if you don't want to go through the work of actually pulling the fry, you can go ahead and heavily dense stock that tank. You can use this. You can use other natural dense planage versus I don't personally recommend mosses just because of the thickness of it. It's just personal preference, but you can use mosses. That's fine. It's just from testing out different methods through the year, that's the one I find that does best. So if you don't plan on pulling, just kind of letting nature take its course, you have to realize that the yield probably isn't going to be as great as if you were actually pulling the parents out and letting the eggs hatch out themselves. Or, oftentimes with most of those species of fish, the fry will actually find their way to the top versus going towards the bottom. You could siphon them out. You could scoop them out with a fine net, that type of thing, and go ahead and transfer them. But oftentimes what a lot of us do is we'll just pull the parents out and go ahead and let the embryos hatch out within that system, and then just have redundancy there, having another system ready to go. Just to give you guys a few ideas if that was something that you guys maybe hadn't seen before. Let's take a look first at some of the different stages of development of certain fish. So what you're looking at here, these are going to be your blue paradise fish, which is a labyrinth species. And if it's showing up there, there's 3 of them in here. So I'm waiting for the camera to focus. So on the bottom corner there, you're going to see the largest. Just above that is the mid-size, and the smallest one is more over here, as you can see. And they are very, very small. It's being magnified right now. And these guys, when they come out, are about 1/3 that size. That gives you anything in perspective. And the reason I'm showing you this is I'm going to show you my recommendation for live food stages and what you should feed. So when they go from this size to this size to this size, and then the next one here is a Frontosa. This is one of my baby Frontosas. As you can see there, it's got a nice plump belly. He ate very, very well today. That is not an egg sac. That is a very full belly. So lots of Daphnia and lots of live mosquito larvae. So these guys right here at this size, it's about almost an inch, 3/4 to an inch in size. Can go ahead. You can continue feeding live foods, but I'll always offer a varied diet, not just high in proteins. As I've talked about before. So you can do certain powdered foods. You can use like tetracolor granules, crush it up into a powder form. You can use like a mixed cichlid. So anything that you would feed the adults, go ahead and just crush it up into a fine powder, and they'll eat off from that. All right. And then now I'm going to show you guys the stages of what I recommend from the smallest as you go up. So the first one I'm going to recommend here is vinegar eels. So let me find my bag of vinegar eels. All right. I gotta use my flashlight here so you guys can see. So don't mind the light. We're gonna try to get this focused so you guys can see the movement. All right. Those are there's literally millions of them in there, and you can see how small they are. So starting out, that's the first stage I would recommend, depending on the size of the fry. All right, so take note of that. We're going to go and jump up one more level. These are microworms. And we do carry these starter cultures on our website. They are available. Just waiting for it to focus, so bear with me. Got to find the sweet spot. I was testing it out earlier to make sure this would work. Just got to find the right angle here. We go top down, see if that will work. There we go. You guys can kind of see that. I'm not sure how well it's showing up for you. And then you can start graduating up from there to very small mosquito larvae. So there's a few different stages in here. And I've done a whole video on culturing mosquito larvae. And you have to just make sure, based on your city ordinance, a lot of them are prohibit any standing water. And to be successful with mosquito larvae, you need standing water. And I use a 32-gallon trash container. The main thing is keeping up with it. So you're not going to have very happy neighbors. So I have to pull from it anywhere between 2 and 3 times a day. So you can see various stages there of size. So I'm not sure how well the smallest are showing up. They're probably towards the top. All right. And then I don't have any brine shrimp to show you guys. I don't have anything going right now of that. This is Daphnia. Some different sizes there of Daphnia. I keep these out by our pond, also in a 32-gallon, where it gets 3/4 of the day sunlight. And it's partially shaded with an air stone. You can actually see a mosquito larvae in there with it. So you definitely want to keep aeration going so you're not competing. And then just lots of, you just want to develop lots of natural algae. So I recommend putting stones in there, appropriate rocks or stones. You can put slate, something in order for algae to grow on. I put out you can put out some Najas grass in there, just kind of develop their own little ecosystem. And you don't need a ton of flow, but just enough to continue keeping a little bit of turnover at the top surface to prevent any mosquitoes from laying any eggs in there. And brine shrimp wise, the ones I recommend, I'm not going to put on blast other companies I've tried, but the ones hands down that I recommend, and I'm not being sponsored by, but is San Francisco Bay. They've been around for many, many years. They are a little bit more expensive. That just comes as this came as a kit. I've made plenty of these myself, similar to this. However, if you're starting out and you're not into DIY stuff, just spend the 17 bucks or whatever it is and get yourself one of these, and you can use even a 2-liter bottle. And then basically the air will filter up to the top. Once you plug this up to an air stone, or I'm sorry, air pump, and I just always recommend keeping the air pump always above, or you can use it if you need to, you can use it below, but they'll prevent you from having to use a check valve. You definitely, if you have the air pump down, you absolutely need to use the check valve, else the water will end up going back into your pump, ruin it. So, and then for Daphnia now, if you're raising those indoors, which we do as well, what I found, instead of using a spirulina powder, another good alternative is you can go to GNC, you can order it online. This is by Amazing Grass. It's an organic wheatgrass. I find that they do very, very well with that as an alternative to spirulina. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Thank you for the moderators, as always. Thank you for anybody who did a super chat. I definitely appreciate it. So just make sure your notifications are on for that. All right. Good night.